I actually am having the funnest day ever.
Oh.
Yeah, as I was saying, like I've never set up for a show swimming around in a pond before, so it's been great. And this team of people, everyone dealing with stuff they've never encountered before, and
you too, right? As
me
an
too,
artist.
totally. Yeah, no, never. I'm about to play in a very small boat for the first time in my whole life. So.
And the nature of the music is a risk for you, is it?
Yeah, no, it's a total stretch for me. Jason is a sort of a friend and colleague from way back, but he comes from a rock and roll background, and I knew that I wanted something that was really accessible and something that matched Amy's choreography style. So I threw the commission to him, and knowing that it was going to take me in some places that would be a bit of a stretch, but I've been getting as funky as I possibly can over the past week, and it's been fun.
In the summer of 2010, a small group of diverse performers led by classical pianist and professional dreamer David Maggs set out to create a musical spectacle in a public park in the heart of Cornerbrook, Newfoundland. David is also the founder of Grossmourn Summer Music, a company that had its inception 8 years ago as a classical music festival. It features musicians from around the globe alongside homegrown talent. The show became known as Splash. Several factors made this production unusual. The performances would happen on the water in Glenmullen Pond at night. The setting was intrinsic to Cornerbrook's history and identity. The Tudor-style inn was built in 1923 to house staff for the paper mill. A pond was created at the mouth of a stream on a large tract of company-owned land to provide a water source for the mill. These beautiful grounds had never before been thought of as a performance space, and every step of the way there were challenges that had to be met with a sense of invention and self-sufficiency. What they achieved can be measured in the tangible fact that over 2 nights, nearly 4,000 people came out to sit along the banks of the water and watch the show. But the real achievement is perhaps more difficult to describe. For a few brief days, the community was offered a new way of seeing and interacting with our city. We sat under the stars and were invited into the dream.
So, take us back to your last year. Was it last year you came up with the idea for Splash? Or had you thought about it before?
It was last year. It was a year ago.
Did you imagine it in that space?
Yeah, right away.
Yeah.
Everything came from wanting to use that space in some way. I had seen some outdoor productions before and had found them really compelling. The more banal the site, or the more at least sort of day to day the site, the more the effects of enchantment could be over it. That had been my experience, and so I was sort of looking for that opportunity somewhere, and saw that was just sitting on the bank of that pond one night and realized just how sort of flat and available that space was. So the idea of writing on it in some way was there, and then it was at that point it was in the hands of emergence, in a sense of what was available while we were musicians and predominantly a music festival. There was dance here, and then the component of the sort of the minor theatrical component that was there was just in a way a busker to tie it to people's experience in some way. But it evolved into what it was, just kind of from wanting to work with the site. We did the Canada Council application in a hurry without being able to consult Jason on it. And just sort of in the back of my mind, I had thought, he was a composer that I knew for a number of years, and we had bandied about different potential projects. And then when this, when the grant landed on our lap and it looked like we were going to do it, he was a great choice. partly because he is someone who embodies that same divide as our festival, I think, in the sense of really wanting to push music's reach, but not wanting to abandon what are, in a sense, his own roots, which is just, you know, blue collar rock and roll. That's kind of where he came from, and yet he's just, you know, voraciously interested in all kinds of music and not afraid to push where it can go. So for him, he could straddle that. But I tried to just give him a sense of what he had to work with, but he was really writing in the dark as such. He didn't know the site. He didn't know what the sort of technical challenges would be. He didn't know Yvette, and that's important to know who you're writing for vocally, just in terms of what she had. And I tried to kind of give him a sense of what she was all about, and he's just got great instincts. You know, I mean, right from the beginning, he had great instincts about the project.
Are you a city boy?
Yeah, very much.
Okay. So what are your impressions of Grosse Moyne Summer Music, the festival, and just being here so far?
I think it's fantastic. I mean, it's, you know, I know Dave from another life, and so to see this aspect of things, and I mean, I'm really blown away. It is really one of the most important things happening on the east coast of Canada. It's a really very cool, progressive, forward art festival that has high integrity, but is actually speaking to communities, which is coming from cities and universities and things. It really doesn't happen often.
David approached you about composing this piece for this particular show, for some nebulous show that was going to happen here on the water. Is that how it...
Yeah, there were guidelines. I mean, he said it was going to be on a boat.
Yeah.
There were 4 musicians. At first didn't know if there was going to be a singer or not. And that was it, just percussion, piano, cello, so I knew Diederik was coming, and myself.
And have you ever composed for dancers before, for music to be...
No, I've done an opera, but that was different than this. Yeah. But the way that it was, he said, was that there was no story. It's just write the music and we'll base it on that. So it was really open-ended as far as what I was allowed to create.
Yeah.
It was just limited by the fact that it was going to be in a boat and amplified.
Oh, right.
So that changes as well how I'm going to approach it, because there's no acoustic factor at that point. And that was it.
Yeah. Well, the cellist in the boat with me has been really a right-hand man in this festival for the past 4 years. Again, a former colleague that I knew in years previous, but thought, you know, for similar reasons to Jason, he's somebody that straddles a lot of different music-making styles. And he's actually an early music specialist, making his living in Utrecht in Holland, but spends every summer here with his Diederik van Dijk. And you know, I just know that he's got the kind of flexibility and openness to jump in a boat and play the cello in a boat, which was great.
But there are lots of good reasons to be here.
Yeah.
And, I love the music making and just with good friends, you know, and it's a rare thing almost. I do a lot of playing in Holland where I live, and it's a lot more mercenary than this. It's just, you know, gigs, and it's fun. I enjoy it, but it doesn't have the same real involvement as this festival.
Okay.
So Dave has the idea. You got Jason Nett to write the music, and you know, I mean, even just getting a good boat. And Paul, whose boat it is, has been really helpful. You know? Like all these elements are coming together. And I'm just a cello player. I just have to make sure I don't fall in.
I mean, you know, we all kind of felt like rock stars out there. For me, sitting at a keyboard I was always worried it was going to tip over. It still had this sense of freedom that our own traditions often don't invite. So it was great, and it was great to see a young singer, because she's 17 or 18, see that flexibility right away.
It's definitely music that I haven't sang a lot of. I'm usually more singing a lot of opera or classical style, but this was really fun. Really rock out, kind of and you can like add a new kind of tone to the music. So it was fun experimenting with that, and the guys were really great, Dejik and Jason and Dave, with encouraging me to like try new things and use a little less vibrato and stuff like that, try and get a new sound.
And then Amy Andrews, who did the choreography and rounded up the dancers, is somebody that's been building dance in the community for 10 years now, and has built that into a great studio of amateur dancers that are entirely enthusiastic about doing anything, including jumping into a pond and dancing for 45 minutes. So she had that kind of momentum in place in town, and it was just a question of kind of pulling it into the show and doing the choreography. And she was, I think, somebody who was genuinely puzzled by what the project was all about, and just sort of as we moved along, she sort of got it a little more, and then was finally very enthusiastic about that.
No, it was different in the choreography aspect, and in the fact that you are working with a different element. And I wanted to show that element. There's a lot of splashing and kicking to make the water move. We're not ignoring the fact that, we're just dancing in this water. No, we're dancing with it. We want to make it part of it. So that's really different with it. All the stuff that you would do as part of regular choreography becomes an extension. Like when your arm moves and the water comes off it, it becomes bigger. Right. So it became exciting when I realized, hey, there's so much more we can do. Okay.
And then each of the dancers, are, again, these are either people that are just starting their training as dancers, or people that just do it as a pastime. But the commitment and the enthusiasm and the energy that they gave to it was something that was really heartening for me. I remember that when we did the dress rehearsal, and we came off the water after that sort of first experience of doing it at night. I think suddenly they had a sense of what kind of expressive power they had in their hands at that point, to be that body in that space moving like that, and the kind of whatever the sort of the focus that would be on them in a way. And I don't think it was not in a sort of egotistical way, but just to understand your body as such an expressive instrument at that point, I think was something that they finally really got in that dress rehearsal, and that from there the enthusiasm was terrific. So they're and all of them have been saying, okay, what are we doing next? Which is a really nice thing to hear. Jim Parsons, who played this character, the janitor of dreams, he's just sort of a local charismatic. He's somebody that does a lot of acting. He really should be an actor, but he just can't accept that about himself.
The last few years, I've only been involved really from a board perspective for the last couple of years, and but we've seen huge leaps in terms of the audience reaction and the numbers we actually get out for a lot of the shows. So I think that we've definitely amped up our marketing in that, but I think a lot of it comes down to Dave's doing a good job with programming, I think, and getting that mix of sort of accessible, sort of interesting things with more sort of standard classical repertoire. And when you put those two things together, you get people in the audience who wouldn't come to that, that sort of traditional thing. They come out for the spectacle or for the popular music, whether it's a gypsy act or world music or traditional, all those different types. So they come in and they're pleasantly surprised by what they, right? And then next time they say, ooh, maybe even though I don't have a direct interest in that type of music, I really like I found it interesting last time. And you sort of expose people to some different things, and then hopefully they find something in each show that they, can relate to.
It's almost dark, and they'll be coming, so you best listen to me very carefully.
It really is, when I'm talking to people about this show, I'm really just listening, and I'm asking for where they sat and what they saw, etc., because I really, when we were out in the boat and you're surrounded by it, it was an amazing experience because I was at the sort of at this keyboard that's at the very edge of the boat, and all I can see is water passing past the boat. You feel like you're on the moon. Like we felt so isolated because we couldn't hear anything outside. We had headphones on because the delay between the live sound and what we were doing was significant enough that it would have been really distracting to, you know, thump down on the keys and then a moment later hear the sound.
How they're going to respond to it and how they're going to deal with the delay. I'm curious. I'm glad it's not me in the boat.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I'm also kind of jealous that I'm not
like
in the boat.
Be in the boat too.
I would too, yes. So I'm feeling a little bit of both.
I know what you mean. I'd like to be dancing on the stage too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'd love to be, you know, but
that's a good show, isn't it? When you'd like to be.
I'd like to be part of it, and I was kind of this was my summer of love, where I was just going to give myself love and not really do anything. I had a summer designed around me just enjoying myself, and this gig I couldn't turn down. It was like, I really don't want to do it on some level, because I know it's going to be intense and there's going to be non-stop problems, but I really don't want to miss it either. Just having instruments, varied instruments in the boat, some that need electricity, some that don't, and it's all wireless from the boat, so there are actually no wires running to or from the boat, which would make it way easier, of course. And just where we are here in the park, it's not easy getting here. So every time we think we have a complete list of what we need, of course, quickly realize that that list is flawed, and we have to leave and go get something else. And although I've been mixing and dealing with live sound for a long time, I've never done anything like this ever before. And you know, just everything about it has been a challenge, but having said that, it's been a lot of fun because you get to experiment and try things.
Keeps life interesting and your work interesting,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, and we got, you know, pretty well made everything work in our rehearsal space, which of course is a totally different thing. It was, you know, it's one thing to get power in a boat and get wireless working in a small space, but to actually do it down here now, just having the boat in the water makes it that much more difficult again, because it's just not easy. And it's not that stable, and we're not talking an ocean liner, we're talking a dory. You know, when Dave first said it, I just kind of went along with him. I just thought it was you know, he often tells me his dreams. And I just listened and really, but when I could tell he was serious about this, I was like, oh no, there's any way to discourage him, but it's too late now. It's very hard to discourage. That's, you know, that's it. Not that I can be a dreamer as well, but Dave is full-time.
Okay.
So it's a little different. I'm a part-time dreamer. Reality will smack me in the face every now and then.
Right. And
Dave has no such problems.
No.
With reality, no. He's not subject to the laws of physics.
Funny, I was hired as a photographer and to do video and document the festival, basically.
Oh. Okay.
Which very quickly changed into the production manager for this show, for the Pond Show. And so this is kind of, I guess I feel a sense of ownership about everything that's going on. It's just like the past 2.5 months or so has been just trying to get this thing off the ground. I really hope that we get some very good fallout. I really hope people start looking at city space differently. This is something, I lived in Toronto for 2 years, and I worked with some groups that were involved with taking back public space. And so this is right up my alley in a lot of ways. We have this gorgeous pond that, I mean, for a long time the trail wasn't even here, and we couldn't even use the space at all. We're moving forward, so there's a gorgeous trail, people know the space is here, but let's step it up a notch. And so now we've got a stage in the middle of the stream. We're going to put some musicians in a boat. What can we do next? What can anyone else do next in other areas of the city, right?
You know, the idea behind Splash and why, or what we hoped would be successful about that is that we could kind of have a double mandate in a sense. We could reach into that world of you know, the more extravagant, expressive, aesthetic realm, but at the same time broaden a base of appreciation. So how high can you build this building, but how much can you sort of make sure that the foundations are strong. And that's the idea behind the whole festival, and it really came to a head with Splash, because we left the hallowed halls of an arts and culture center, of a concert theater, and went into a public space that everybody knows and cherishes and has some imagining of, and then just try to express some sort of aesthetic vision in that space, and the result was something I was really pleased with, that we got the kind of numbers that we did, and for the most part we got really positive reviews from people who would never find themselves rubbing shoulders with the artsy crowd in town. So it seemed to accomplish that goal. You're bound to learn a variety of things you didn't know about this, but I think just some very tedious efficiency gains. I think that we can work with the site in very different ways, and the idea of throwing different material out there is something that would be tempting. I really didn't know what it was going to become in the end, and so in doing the next one, if we do a next one, I'd want to maintain the same ignorance, and say, I really don't know what this is going to become, and just follow it with the same kind of naivety that we followed this one.